Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Ape Escape. In the last part, we started off World 2 and got through most of it in the process, but now we're moving on to the final stage of World 2. This is Cryptic Relics, which introduces one of my favorite tools in the game, now that I think about it.
Look what I've got, a new gadget. Check it out.
Here's the slingback shooter. Just pull back and shoot. I'm sending the new gadget over to you right now. Try it out in the training room. Without training, it will be too dangerous for you to continue on to the next area. Well, good luck and be careful.
I'm gonna be honest with you, Professor, no one in the world is ever gonna call this the slingback shooter, it's the slingshot. So the slingshot is pretty useful because it's one of the only, if not the only, true long-distance weapon you get in the game, and it can do damage to enemies in one of three ways, because it has standard pellets, it has explosive pellets that do a little more damage, and it has homing pellets that shoot through projectiles that home in on targets at once. You can just aim with the right stick, but I don't like doing that. I like to press the L2 button to go into first person and aim from there. With that said, one of the most notable glitches in the game also involves this, but I don't use it because it's pretty precise. If you spam the right stick to aim, unaim by just letting go of the right stick, and jump within some amount of frames, you can just spam that over and over again to infinitely jump into the air and skip over a lot of the levels. If you ever want to get a good look at how that looks, look at any speedrun of the game from the past while. You'll see it. It allows them to beat the game in just under an hour. It is absurd how useful it can be for that. With that said, the main ability of the slingshot, outside of just using it to hit enemies, it's also one of the only items in the game that can hit switches from a distance. So more or less, that's going to be on my main tools moving forward for the rest of the game. By and large, every Ape Escape, by the time I get certain abilities, I just tend to stick with 4 particular items unless I need to otherwise, just because they're the ones that end up being used the most. For instance, I could hit that switch up there, but I honestly don't need to. That makes that bridge there extend, but that's only needed for another monkey that I'm not going for, and I don't even think you can get on the first visit. I want to say you might need another ability, but I actually might be imagining that. No, I think you can't get the monkey that's up there right now. There's another monkey up there that I could theoretically get as well, that required you to go straight at the start instead of turning left, but I'm saving that for the inevitable revisit here, because I just feel it's better to go for the later monkeys first. With that said, these spinning enemies are what I find to be the worst normal enemy in the game, because they are fast once they start spinning at you. And once they start spinning, you can hit them back, but you can't damage them until they stop spinning. The thing is, they are relentless in their pursuit, and very often if you just try to ignore them, you'll get hit anyway. We'll see that especially with certain later variants of them, because we do get a couple of different visual versions of them later on throughout the game. I don't like them. They are the worst normal enemy in the game, bar none. Which is kind of surprising, because the game has quite a few just straight-up normal enemies that aren't monkeys. Some that are even exclusive to certain levels just to get certain aesthetics out of the way. Most of them are easy to ignore. In fact, it's recommended you ignore them unless you just want to farm for coins to get extra lives, or if you want to get health, because monkeys have been hitting you too much. Very few of them are outright annoying. This is one of the few that truly are. And even then, I should note, you don't even need to hit enemies to get health in a lot of cases. The designers knew well enough that certain areas are very easy to take damage in, be it fall damage or otherwise. So in certain portions of the game, you'll just see this floating canister that you can hit, and it'll drop 3 health over and over again. So you can just infinitely get health there. I want to say this level even has one of those, but I don't quite remember, because this is one of those levels that is honestly very small. The big challenge with it is trying to figure out how to get behind certain locked gates, like this one, and figuring out which route you want to take through it. I remember distinctly, though, this stage had an occurrence of something that I didn't mess with for a while, because once you swim under here, you can jump up for this little extra area. But nearby, there's this, like, pane of glass that has a switch behind it. Growing up, I could not figure out how to get past that pane of glass. Without realizing, oh wait, it's a pane of glass. You can just hit it over and over again with a slingshot, with a stun club, with anything to open it up. It takes 2 to 3 hits. There it is right there. I don't know why it took me forever to realize it. I think this is also the only time they have this particular texture used. But you can just do that. Young me figured there was maybe a switch I had to press to open it, maybe. But that took me an obtusely long time to figure out, and it's kind of sad. Like, kids are... The way a child's brain works is interesting, because there's times we'll get things obtusely fast. But then there's times where the super easy stuff takes us a second, or 30, or more to figure out. I guess it's maybe a thing of intuition versus academics, maybe. Like a more complicated thing, like maybe an Ace Attorney game, which those shouldn't be played by younger kids anyway, because those can get kind of mature. Those games can be harder for kids because that's a lot of, I need to figure out how this connects to that. Whereas seeing an environmental puzzle, kids will probably be able to figure out faster than some adults. Also, I love that graffiti there. Weirdly reminds me of the ending of Metroid Zero Mission. Partially just because it's very, like, etched into the wall, clearly. By and large, though, the puzzles in the game are non-existent. If there's a puzzle that's getting to a monkey, it's usually just figuring out where you can destroy something or finding the switch you need to hit. Or finding the rotunda you need to rotate, or whatever you could call those rotating switches. Usually, puzzles didn't start getting a little more in-depth-ish until Ape Escape, even 3. Ape Escape 2 had a few more unique things that it could do, but more or less those were relegated to certain tools that, when I look back, are more or less just keys. Yes! That's that level, though. There was a monkey you could actually go see up by climbing that pole that was behind me at the end there, but we can't get that until at least World 6, because you need one of the last tools in the game to get to that particular monkey. In some ways, I like that they tease you like that, but on repeat playthroughs, it's like, oh, come on. Can there at least be a mode where I have every tool to start?
I've been waiting for this for a long time. This is just between you and me. Follow me.
At a few particular points in the game, we actively get challenged by Jake to sort of a boss fight. It's the closest thing the game has to boss fights in a lot of cases. But these are races to the end of the stage. But you don't need to win these. The only thing you get for beating these is 5 Spectre coins, which, as I mentioned before, are only useful for getting the true 100% rating, as well as unlocking the 3 mini-games the game has to offer that will show off towards the end of the game. With that said, I do like these sections, A, because Ape Escape Pumped and Primed, which is sort of a minigame-based Ape Escape game, was very similar to this in its structure in some cases. But they eerily remind me of, like, the Bowser stages from 64 in particular, and with how Spike controls, I think they're very satisfying to pull off. My best advice for them, though, double jump where you can, but if you have to take a hit to excel forward faster, like in that lava section, do it. And whenever you have a turn, hug the interior of it, because Jake tends to not do that, meaning that you can just get some speed ahead of him that way. Also, when it comes to these rotating ball and chains, only the ball has a hitbox. The chain you can just walk right through and you don't have to worry at all, if memory serves. You'll usually pull these a bit tight unless you're super precise, but at the end of the day, you can just retry them from the stage select, no problem.
I'll go up against you anytime you want.
I should note, though, they actually play the wrong dialogue there. Jake has a line when you lose to him and when you beat him, and they're in the wrong places. His victory line is actually meant to be his lost line and vice versa. But for beating him, we can now not only progress, which you can actually do if you lose now that I think about it, but we've also unlocked the first minigame, but we'll go over that later. For that, it's now time for us to start off World 3 with Crabby Beach.
Look what I've got, a new gadget. Check it out.
This is the Super Hoop. It protects you and makes you run faster. I'm sending the new gadget over to you right now. Try it out in the training room. Without training, it will be too dangerous for you to continue on to the next area. Well, good luck and be careful.
I distinctly remember as a kid calling this thing the Super Hooper rather than the Super Hoop. With that said, this is one of my favorite tools in the game. By rotating the analog stick, you build up a charge, and once built up, you run faster. This makes getting around the larger levels of the game a lot less annoying because you can just speed up. It'll also allow you to get past certain time switches like this that are pressure sensitive. With that said, it can also be used as an attack by just bumping into enemies. It's straightforward, yes, but I adore this tool, especially in the sequels.
In this next period, you'll find that most of the planet is covered with water. The water net will be very useful in catching the apes. There are lots of dangerous creatures below the surface. Be careful.
Time for us to start off the water world of the game, which is where we use the water net the most, as the professor just said, but honestly, it's not too bad. To the point where even here in the first level of the world, you don't actually enter the water. You can if the monkeys do here on the beach, if memory serves. But by and large, you can just ignore the water in the first level and you're completely fine. It's only the second and third levels where we actively have to swim. And even then, I'm thinking through. The monkeys can jump in the water themselves, but I don't think they actively place any monkeys in the water by themselves until later on in the game. But this level does actually have a first for us. That thing there in the distance with the 3 red icons on it. I forget the name of that thing off the top of my head. But it's essentially a locked gate that'll only unlock after you've caught the amount of monkeys that are marked on it. In this case, we need to catch 3 monkeys in order to progress past this beach area. Like so. We don't want to move on too far, though, because we can actually catch 4 of the 5 monkeys we need to right here in this beach. And this particular monkey is probably the most annoying out of this set. Because something I've noticed about Ape Escape 1 in particular is even if the monkeys don't notice you, if you approach where they are, they'll jump off of whatever they're resting on. Ape Escape 2 and 3, especially 3 from memory, if you would approach a monkey stealthily, they won't move at all usually. It's only if they start suspecting something that they'll usually get off their perch. And because of that, it's much easier to catch monkeys without having to do a chase in the sequels. This stage also is noticeable, in my case, for having one of the most hard-to-spot Spectre coins. You have to turn the camera around right there. Like I mentioned, the camera, or actually, have I mentioned this? The camera in the game is controlled with D-pad, which is a little weird at first, but due to the fact that you have to, like, put a finger over the analog sticks and usually the triggers anyway in order to, like, jump or anything, it comes across pretty natural after a while. But you can press the, I think it's the L1 button, to just center the camera behind you like it's Ocarina of Time. Yes! At least I think it's L1, it might be L2. It's one of those buttons. It is deceptively useful because the camera's turning speed, I find, is just slow enough to be annoying. They could have sped that up a little bit, like I think the sequels do even, and it would have been a lot more useful.
You did great.
Points off of the PSP remake of this game, by the way, for completely messing up the game's controls. Because the PSP only had a left analog stick, they ended up, I believe, making it so that the X button either swung whichever weapon you had in the direction you were facing or entered an aiming mode of sorts. It controls awfully. It's a nice graphical improvement over the original, but I almost kind of prefer the pixels of the original because it's almost charming with its PS1 polygonalist? Not even sure if that's a word. I like how the PlayStation version looks better, ultimately, is what it comes down to. Even with some of the, at times, wonky animations and proportions, especially for the monkeys. I don't like how they look in Ape Escape 1 and 2 anymore. So this stage has a monkey I don't like right off the bat. The monkey here that's riding this shark, you need to basically bait the shark into attacking you to grab it with the water net. But I don't think I've ever successfully caught that monkey without taking a hit myself. I don't like that. I don't think I ever noticed that you could slip on the crabs. Huh. Now, this stage is another case of monkeys that we can see early on that you can't grab until later, because right across from where this cliff where these two are is a monkey that's too high for you to jump up to no matter what you try to do, barring maybe using the aforementioned Slingshot glitch where you can do infinite jumps. I was tempted to almost do that here, but I wanted to grab every monkey when they want you in this LP, by and large, so we're not doing that. I say by and large because there are some cases where monkeys are like behind a small fence, where if you angle yourself correctly, you can shoot the... well, not shoot the net. Swing the net through the bars and still catch it due to some iffy hitboxes. But I decided ultimately to not really use that too much. I think it only really happens in one case way later on in the game. But this stage is notable in that it has our first instance of something that we're actively going to see. This is where we can first see monkeys that ride vehicles. At least it's where we first see it. You can technically see it as early as the stage where the raft got introduced. But right there is a UFO. If this monkey spots you, it'll jump into that. And at that point, you need to hit it with a slingshot 3 times to knock it down. Some monkeys have infinitely spawning UFOs, so you need to be a bit careful about them. Additionally, with the UFOs, so it only really happens with a couple of them in particular, sometimes their hitbox can get detached from their animation, and because of that, aiming to hit them can be a little bit of a trial. Do we see that later on? Maybe. Watch in suspense. Later, Ape Escapes will introduce even more vehicles for the monkeys to ride, but UFOs, I believe, are in every entry. Ape Escape 1 is very much a case of it's a great game, but the sequels just make it almost redundant. Because outside of the cool PS1 polygons now, which have become nostalgic, and I do admittedly like sometimes how the textures warp, the sequels just completely outclass it in every way, really. Although I'll give the game this, it runs super smooth. The PlayStation's a little bit weird to me because a lot of its 3D games don't run the best, but then you get stuff like Crash, like I think Nightmare Creatures, like this, that monkey was stuck, where it runs at such a consistently smooth frame rate that it puts some PS2 through PS4 games to shame. It could be a thing of there's less to render, yeah, but sometimes you just wonder how they pulled off so much with so little. Either way, with that, I'm gonna need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 4, we're gonna, I believe, finish off World 3 before moving on to World 4. By and large, the Jake fights are the only boss fights we're gonna be seeing for a while, by the way. See you guys then.